chord extensions. So this will be exciting. I just need to get a couple little things set up. All right, I think I'm good. Not sure. Again, I don't know why, but my iPad never shows if anyone is in chat or not. So I have no way of knowing. Let me see if I can see anything on my phone. Let's see if that helps. Well, doesn't look like it, so I can't tell if anybody's here or not, which really makes it tough because I don't know how long to continue with stuff. But let's go ahead and get started. Tonight we're going to talk about chord extensions. I had someone ask me about that the other night, and I thought it'd be a good idea. This will definitely help anything you're working on, enhancing your harmony, and a thing called voice leading, which we'll talk about. So let's just go ahead and get started. So I just got a notification that somebody's here, so good. So I thought I would take a simple chord progression that'll involve mostly white keys, so that'll be a little easier to see. We're going to be in the key of F. So we're going to have F major, E major, A minor, G minor, C, F. So I'm going to do this progression all in root position, just triads, just so you can get a feel for what's happening here. Just playing an F major to an E major to an A minor, G minor, C. Very simple progression. All right, so what are these sevenths that you speak of? Seventh chords. If you remember, we talked several lessons ago about major triads, major and minor triads, C major, C minor. Okay, so let me pull up this. I think this will help visualize it better than looking at my screen will. Let's see, can we get that in? Okay, so we talked about progressions. So we have a C major, and if you notice, it's every other note. Well, what if we skip another note? Ooh, that's all of a sudden that sounds a little nicer. A little prettier sounding, as opposed to now we have, if I skip another note, and just so you know, if we go by a C scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to the root. We're playing the root, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. So that's every other note. If I play the next, skip a note and play another note, that's the ninth. And you can see on the screen how it all stacks up. Since we're on a major chord, if I go to that note, that becomes the 11th, but we tend to use a sharp 11. I'll explain that in a little bit. And if I go up, skip a note and do another one, C major 13 with a sharp 11. So we have root, third, fifth, 7, 9, sharp 11, 13. Now if I'm doing minor, I'm still going to skip, but I'm going to flat the 7, flat the 9, keep the 11th natural as it was, and there's the 13. So all we're doing is building this in thirds. So that's called, that's called tertiary harmony, meaning things are built in thirds. So basically you can pick any note and skip a note, 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 skip a note. And so that's where we're going with all this tonight. But what we want to know is how do these chords help you and make things easier? I wish I could make things easier by not having my cat right under my feet. She likes to sleep on my pedal, so I have to be careful not to disturb her napping. So if you can share your pillow there, G, that would be nice. There we go. So we're going to we're going to go ahead and start seeing how these extensions on the chords can help, and we're going to start by just using seventh chords. So if you remember, the first thing I did, and I'm going to leave this other screen up so you can see what's happening. We'll let this play around a second. So now I'm just simple F, E, so now I played all of those in root position, as you could see. We have the F, we have the E, A minor, then G minor, then C major. All right, so, and basically what we're doing is a 1 major 7 chord, not a major 7th, but a major 7. 1, 2. To a 3 chord, to a 2 chord, to a 5 chord, to a 1. So it's all fairly simple in that respect. So we're going to go ahead and and I got word that we got some people in here, so that's good. And I think on my phone, yes, my phone can actually see somebody. So I see one of my students here, R. Hayes. Good to see you. Good to see you. Stoley, always a pleasure. Stoley's one of my moderators and all around good dog. So okay, so what we want to do is we want to enhance this chord progression. Once again, F to E to A minor, G minor, C, F. A 1 7, a 1 7 3 6. Oh man, a 1 7, a 3 2 5 1. All right, so fairly common chord progression. If you remember a song by Bill Withers and Grover Washington Jr., just the two of us. Same progression. I'm just, just a different key. So it's a fairly common chord progression that we're hearing. So now let's take this first chord, F, and let's maybe make it a major seventh chord. So to do that, you see I'm skipping notes, skipping that note, going here, skipping the D, and going to E. So now I have an F major 7. Now, if I want to go to the E, I'm going to use a dominant 7 this time. So that means I'm going to flat the 7. So I'm going to have an E, a G sharp, a B, and a D. Pay no attention to the spelling on the screen here. That A flat is a G sharp. So just want you to be aware of that. You always spell a chord every other note of the musical alphabet. So if I'm starting on E, my next note is some kind of G. So in this case, it's G sharp. After that, it'll be a B. We don't want to use a major 7. I mean, that's a great sound, but for our purposes right now, plus we're getting ready to go to an A minor, and that doesn't sound as good as, see, that has a little more of a cadence to it, a little more resolution. So we're gonna use that. So we have F major 7, and now we're gonna go to this E7, which is a dominant chord. When a chord is dominant, we do not have to say E dominant 7 or anything like that. All we have to say is E7. Whenever we're playing a 7th chord, we only make a distinction if it's a major 7 or a minor 7. Any other kind of 7, it's understood that it's dominant. Okay? So now let's go to A minor 7. Again, I start on A, skip a note to C, skip a note to E, every other letter of the musical alphabet, and G. So now I have an A minor 7. So now we can that's already sounding much better than, see, we're getting a little, some people might say jazzier. It's not. It's just a little fuller sound. I tend to shy away from that term jazzier because jazz is sometimes considered a 4-letter word, and we don't use 4-letter words on this channel. So anyway, we have F major 7, E7 to A minor 7. Now my next chord was a G minor, so I'm going to make it a G minor 7, And I'll start on G. Let's play a G minor. 1, flat 3, 5, and then just skip a note. There's your 7th. There's the G major 7, G minor 7, sorry. So now we have F major 7, E7, A minor 7, G minor 7, and our next chord is a C7. Okay, so we have a C major triad, and we added the flat 7. So here's another way to think about 7th chords. If it's a major 7, play a major triad, and then the note a half step away from the root up top. So in other words, this is C. There's my root up top. I'm just bringing it down a half step. That gives me a major 7. So when I play F, there's my root up top. I'm bringing it down a half step. Now it's a major 7. If we're doing dominant 7, you play the major triad. You can put your root up top and then go 2 half steps down, which becomes the flat 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 gets flatted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if we're playing a minor 7th chord, we play a minor triad, put your root up top, and move down 2 half steps or 1 whole step, whichever is easier for you to think about. So now our chord progression, and this is strictly just using 7ths now. Here's what we have. Let's get to the... Oops, didn't use the 7th there. Let's do that again and let you see what's happening on the screen, the little app here at the same time. There we go. Questions so far? Everybody still following me on all this? If you have a question, don't hesitate to ask, because it can get a little excuse me, it can get a little confusing, but shouldn't excuse me. Whew, it shouldn't be too bad. So all right, now if you remember a while back, I did a video on chord inversions, where we went through doing an exercise where we went through the circle of fifths. if you know your inversions, this part is going to really help you. Now, when we look at this F major 7, let's say we're going to play it in root position. Now, the next chord I'm going to is an E7, so that makes sense just to go ahead and drop that down. In other words, you're just moving that chord down a half step, but making the major 7 to a minor, to a dominant 7. But now, to go to that A minor, we jumped all the way up here. That's a long ways to go. So let's look at the E7 for a second. We have E, G sharp, B, and D. In the A minor 7, I need A, C, E, and G. The only note I have in common right now is that E. But this G sharp I can bring down to a G, the B can move to an A, and the D can go to a C. So, doesn't that sound much nicer than going? So now you get, now here, I could do the same thing, but I'm starting to get a little muddy, you know. It's not bad, but it's you're pushing the envelope there. So since I'm on my E minor or my A minor 7 here, why don't we look at the G minor 7 instead of going down? Let's do that one in root position, because that's not a, or I could go, that'll even be better. So I'm at the A minor 7 like this. To get to G minor, I'm going to put the G, I'll start by putting the G in the bass, moving my E up to F. I can keep the G here, moving the A to B flat and my C to D. So we get that movement. F major 7, E7, A minor 7, G minor 7. Now to get to my C7, I've got 2 notes already, the G and the B flat. All I need is the E. So, or I can even double that root. All right, so now just using 7th chords, we've made this progression a lot smoother. So here it is, just using 7th chords. And it go a little something like this. So that made a huge difference, just adding 7ths. Now remember, we talked about root, 3rd, 5th, major 7. The major 7 is a half step away from the root. Let's go up another 3rd and add a 9. Oh yeah, starts. Here's where the fun starts. Because the E7 is a dominant chord, if we add a ninth to that chord, it's that note there. Or we can also sharp that 9 or flat that 9. It has a lot of tension, but when you use it to move to another chord, I'm going to go sharp 9, flat 9 on the E. Oh man, look how that just led into that A minor so nicely. And if you noticed, I'm playing the A minor differently now. I'm playing the 7th on the bottom, 7, root, 3rd, 5th. So now we've got the G minor in root position. Now here comes a 7th chord again. So if I want to use the 9th, I can just do that. There's my G minor 7. G, B flat, D, and F. I'm going to change my bass to C, and all I'm going to do is move that F to an E. And there's my 7th chord. Now, actually it's a 9th chord, excuse me. And I can flat that 9. Now we're starting to get in that 4-letter word a little bit, but not so much, because you hear this on a lot of R&B. You'll hear it on, you'll hear people like Her uses it in the song Your Song. Major 7th chords, then she goes to a minor 7. So you hear these chords a lot. Rock bands, not as much. You'll hear dominant 7ths in rock groups all the time. But in terms of hearing, you'll hear major 7ths and minor 7ths occasionally, but it's not usually the rule. Most R&B though and even some pop are going to use the major minor 7ths and some dominant 7ths. R&B will take the chance and use 9ths and things like that. But what we're getting to, the reason that I'm having you experiment with your voicings, with your chord inversions, which we also call those voicings, how we lay out a chord and voice it. One of the reasons that we do that is so that you can get a sense of how we can make melody out of chords. Because right now, if I'm doing this is my top note. When I go to that E7, see that? If I did it when I didn't use any inversions whatsoever, here's what your top line sounds like. Way too much movement. And any of my students will testify to the fact that I always say, if you're moving around too much on the piano when you're playing chords, you're playing way too much. It just doesn't need to be that way. Most chord progressions will follow this pattern that you'll typically have something in common with the chord that you're going to. So you want to keep as many of those notes as possible. Now this may take you a while to start getting used to. One of the things you can do is take a major 7 chord and practice your inversions with it. So now you have root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. Same thing with minor chords. You'll have root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. And same thing with the dominant 7. Root, first, second, third. So every time you play a chord, you have at least 3 other choices, or 4 really, that you can use to add to that. So now let's take our chord progression that we just did, where I added the 9th to the F. And then I did a sharp 9 leading down to a flat 9, which took me to that A minor 7. So my all right, so you can see how just now with just a bass line and the upper harmony, if you think in terms, if you can sing, this is something else. If you can sing, or even if you can't sing, you should try. Because if you can sing, you don't want to have to go from, that's not easy to sing. You know, that's tough. But if you're just going to go, anybody can sing that. So all you're trying to do is create harmonies that, like if you had a choir in front of you, you don't want them jumping all over the place. You want them in a more relaxed, kind of just floaty, let's get from point A to point B. Now, before I was doing sharp 9. The reason this is a sharp 9, I'll explain this one more time, is because, and you'll see it says up there E7 sharp 9 no 5. That means no 5th of the chord. We don't need the 5th on any 7th chords for that matter. You can, I can actually play this chord an E7 with just 2 notes. I don't need that 5th in there. It doesn't change anything. Doesn't change a thing. So the 9th, since it was a dominant chord, I flatted that 9th, and you can have an E9. I mean, that's nothing. That's no big deal to have a major 9 in there. In this case, we used. Let's see what happens if I use an E7 with just a 9. Doesn't have quite the same tonality to it. So we use that sharp 9 resolving down to a flat 9, which leads into the 5th of that A minor 7. Now, what happens if we reverse that and go flat 9, sharp 9? Where does that leave me? I can go back there, but now I'm having to drop there. I could go and play that A minor in root position. A minor 7 in root position. So you just want to experiment until, like most players will have voicings that they tend to rely on and use. I'm no different. I do like to experiment. After a certain time, I'm always trying to figure out a different way to play a chord. And you can spread out a chord however you want. But let's try that with the, let's try our little groove with the flat 9, sharp 9, resolving to the 7th, and see how that sounds. Now watch this. Drummers, they never want to stop. They always keep wanting to play. It doesn't matter if they're canned or real. Okay, so here's what happened there. Remember we talked earlier, we had 7th, 9ths, 11ths, and 13ths. So I just started building more extensions on chords. So I kept the F as a 9, did a sharp 9 to a flat 9, then went to the A minor 7, but for the G minor 7, instead of that, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, I added a 9th. So that just takes it somewhere else, and I can still get to the C7. I could do that, or let's look at the G minor 9 one more time. G, B flat, D, F, and A. What is the 9th of a C chord? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Quick little tip. In any scale, the 2, if it's above the octave, is a D. The 4 is the 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, up an octave. And the 6 is the 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the 13. So, when I have this G minor 7 here, or the G minor 9, excuse me, I actually, if I put a C in the bass, I've got the C, which is the root, the 7th, because we want it to be some sort of C 7th chord. The D is the 9th. I'm going to move the F, which is the 11th, down to the 3rd. And let's say I keep that A. Now I've got a 13th chord, a C13. But you see how easy that was to get there? All I had to do was just move one note. I just moved this F down to E. And of course change the bass. So now I had the minor 9 to the 13. Now, with the 13, like the 9th, you can have a flat 13. Okay? So if you can't sharp the 13 because then that just takes you to B flat, which is the 7th. But you can have a flat 13. So now when I play that G minor 9, I can go to the C13, flat the 13, and look at this. I'm right back on that F major 9 where I started just by going. So I end up with very easy to sing. Very easy for all parts included. So let's hear that one time with the. Now we're starting to get into a whole different thing here, and that's still starting that F major 9 in root position. If I didn't start that in a root position, I could do all kinds of things. I could maybe get, let's see. So now I can actually move the chords to that progression around, so I don't even have to repeat it, but never get too far away from where I actually started. So in root position, F major 9, that's root position as well. A minor 7, G minor 9 was the first time. And actually, I'm thinking about this. I'm doing all the first 4 chords. Everything is root position except for this. There's root. Root position. Root position. And then the 13 is the only chord that is not root position, because that would be, you'd be stacking up some notes there. So now when we do this, let's say instead of playing my F major 9 like this, let's say I play it like this, where I put that 9th on the bottom. One of the things, this is very good for R&B, especially, is that sounds like it kind of has a dissonant sound to it, but when I add the rest of the notes with it, see, that sounds really pretty. Now I'm just climbing. That time I doubled the root, but I could have gone there and done a so now I can go so many different places, because A, I know chord extensions, and B, I know inversions. Everybody with me so far? Any questions? Let's try playing this progression around a couple of times now, using some different inversions and things like that. So I'm going to start with my F major 7 down here. 9. I'm going to put the 9 in the bottom. And let's just see where that takes me. this a few different ways. Now you will notice that typically when I did my E7 with a sharp 9 to the flat 9 or vice versa, I almost kept that in root position each time, because if I'd have done that here, see, that wouldn't have the same impact. So, but I could have done but then I would have these three notes together. So this makes the most sense. Now that can move to there easily enough, or it can move there, trying to keep it very close. I don't want to get too far beyond the harmony of where I'm starting. So we talked about that G minor 9. Let's talk about an A minor 9. Lovely chord. Very warm sounding. Right? So when I go, there's my A minor 9. I've got the root and the bass, the 7th, the 9th, the 3rd, and the 5th. And if you notice, I've got that B and C next to each other. The interval of a minor second. But when it's surrounded by the 5th and the 7th, it's a gorgeous chord. So now let's do the G the same way. We'll keep the 9th, but we'll invert it. And look at that. For that, all I had to do was move that F to E when I changed my bass. And you hear this all the time. I just added the 9th and the 13th. And why does that work? Because it's a 2 to a 5 to a 1. We talked about a 2-5-1 progression at one point, I believe. I should probably do a deeper dive on 2-5-1s at some point. It's the most common turnaround in music. Doesn't matter what type of music you're doing. Pop, R&B, jazz, even blues. There's always some form of 2-5-1 that typically occurs. Sometimes you'll hear 4-5-1, like a, but that could just as easily be. We'll get into that at another point. What we're trying to do is work out harmony for a song. Let's try an experiment. Does anybody have a chord progression that they would like to have me try with this method? Even if you have something you've been working on that you would like to enhance it a little bit. See if we get the concept here. Because once you get this, it's actually very simple, and your chords start sounding as melodic as your actual melodies. So you can do so much with the chords, the harmony to a song, and enhance it when you're playing a melody. So if anybody has a quick chord progression that they want to throw out, 4 chords, 5 chords, I'll fool around with it and see what we can come up with. If not, that's okay too. So let me try doing this again using that A minor 9, and see where that takes us. Drummer, stop. Man, they're so slow at that. They get in their own little world. Now, the next step that you can do is move these inversions around. So, in other words, if I start my F major 9 here, I can move that G, the 9th, that's down here, and move it up top, so that instead of doing this, I can go now. Here we're going to have a little bit of a jump. Let's see what happens. Now this is a flat 9, flat 13. Why is it a flat 9, flat 13? Because my 9th, which is also the second note of the scale, has been flatted. I've got a C7. I flatted the 9. The 13 is the 6th note of the scale, and I flatted it. So and you see how easily that, and there it is with just flat 9. You might I'll tell you a good song where you hear a use of is it starts out with that 9 chord going to a flat 9. So that's a nice little movement there. So you can flat a 9, you can sharp a 9, you can flat a 13 or add just a 13, but this gives you so many different possibilities, because if you're doing a 9th chord, you got root position, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion. So you have all these different inversions that you can use for this. So now if we do this song and we move our inversions, instead of just hanging on to them, we get this. So I'll play it one way without moving, and then one way with. Let's start with the 9 though. I'm going to use some inversions. So instead of hanging on to this for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, for a measure each. 1, 2. Here's the only one that's 2 beats each. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. So instead of just hanging on to that chord for one whole measure, I'm going to move these chords now. Drummer, I'm not going to tell you again. So you get the idea of what's happening here. I'm constantly changing my inversion, but I'm never straying too far, and it's making my piano part a little more. All right, now this time I just thought of that. I just put my ninth on the bottom for the A minor. That leads me to a very nice root position G minor, or I could, let's see, I could put that ninth up top. Oh, now here I just added an 11th. Root, 3rd, 5th, 7, 9, 11th. The 11th is the 4th. There's the 4th, it's above the octave. Now you notice typically I don't do a lot of, like you'll see a lot of piano players, I don't know how well you can see this, but their left hand will play the root, the 5th, and the 3rd. I've got small hands, so I typically don't voice chords that way because it's just a little harder for me, and I like to make everything as easy as possible. So now let's see what happens if I throw that 13 in there. Taking that minor 9 to a C7 with a flat 9 brought us right back to that F major 9 very nicely. That's also because it's a 2-5-1. If you're not up on 2-5-1s, I promise in the next week or two I will do a little deeper dive into that, because that is an extremely important movement in music. You hear it constantly. My Shearer Moore. Here comes a 2-5. 2-5-1. And then to get back, 2-5. That 2-5 is all over the place. And you notice I use Stevie Wonder a lot here because there's probably not a finer songwriter out there right now, in my opinion. Some people may say Kanye is the greatest songwriter. That's sarcasm, by the way. But we're not dissing Kanye. We're dissing Kanye. Yeah. Okay, so let me grab a bottle of water real quick. Give me like 15 seconds. Count. made it in under 15. All right. There we go. That's how we like to do it here. All right. So you can start seeing how this 2/5 or how these progressions can multiply just by changing a tone or two. And if you use single notes to get to your next chord, that works as well. So you see how I did that. Drummer, if you would. You never need to be told twice. Using a little bit of chord or tone movement on the chords. That's another way you can do things, is you can start adding little melodies in between all this. And the next thing you know, you've just really created a very strong chord track. And excuse me, I needed that. So those are some ideas. A little while ago, I asked if anybody had a chord progression that they wanted to have me try doing this with, and I don't think I got any responses to that. So here's your last chance to do that. Like I say, I took a very simple chord pattern. I modeled it after Grover Washington's Bill Withers, Just the Two of Us. You could even think of trying to think of the song. What You Won't Do for Love, Bobby Caldwell uses the same kind of thing. It goes from a 1 chord to a 7, a dominant 7, to a 3 chord. Then he does a 2, 5, back to the D, that 7 chord, and that puts you in F minor. So now my cat gets up from behind my feet because she knows time is ending. She, if any of my students are still in here, they can attest to the fact that when their lesson is up, I don't even need to check the time. She just starts meowing or moseying over to the piano like she's got business to do, and plays things, has me stop, essentially, or at least gives me the warning to stop. So, all right, we're going to go one more time through this, And if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And we'll go from there. I'm going to try several different methods here. So there you have it. I tried to do some different voicings, some different movement, and using some lead tones to get to the next spot. There's all kinds of methods that we can use, but the main thing is experiment. I know sometimes you get a song idea and you just want to get it out there. And that's fine. Just get that idea out as quickly as you can. But when you go back, don't just settle for your original thought. Play around with it a little bit. You know, remember, we started with this. That's where we began all this, with just a simple triad, root position triads all over the place. And now you're using ninths and 11ths and 13ths. We didn't talk too much about the 11ths. And I don't really want to get into those tonight, because there's on major chords, we tend to use a sharp 11. So in other words, if you played a C triad in one hand and a D triad over top of it, that doesn't have a seventh, but you could put that major seventh in, or you could put that, make it a dominant 7 chord with the sharp 11. So, you know, and we use the regular 11th a lot when we're, so that would be like playing whatever minor 7th chord you're playing with a 5th above in the bass. So in other words, if you're playing a G minor 7, a 4th, I'm sorry, or a 5th below. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is actually also called a sus chord. You see on there it's marked as a C9 sus 4. It's because I have the root, the 5th, the 7th, the 9th, and the sus 4, or the 11th, because that resolves to the 3rd. So you get the, you know, you hear that sound a lot. With without putting all the jazzy type stuff in there, if I just had here's a major triad, and I'll do another episode on suspended chords as well, but I'm just gonna throw it out there for you now. I like to just plant seeds in advance. If we have a triad and we raise that third to the fourth, we get a suspended chord, a C sus4. And it resolves. You can hear where it's got some tension. Like if you know Pinball Wizard. Uses that. Then we also have sus2 chords, where we take our triad and instead of bringing that to a fourth for a sus4, we bring it down to the next, the second note of the scale for a sus2. You hear this a lot in country music, to be honest with you. That around a little bit too. The sus2 chord works nicely into the major. So also add that sus2 to a triad, and you get what's called a C major add 2 or a C2 chord. And you can do the same thing with a minor. When I was in college, all the girls wanted to watch The Young and Restless, and it started out with that sus. Back and forth between a major and a minor, or a minor and a major sus2. Something like that. So we'll get to sus2s and 11s, but for now we've got major 7ths, 9ths, and 13ths. All right, so here we go. All root positions, just triads. This is just where we started. Shouldn't have used that 7. Oh, sure I should have. Why not? This is without. I'll use it this time around. Now we're going to use major 7th and dominant 7th chords. discussed here today. So, if there are no questions, I'm going to call it a night. Does anyone have any questions before I decide to call it a night here? No? Okay. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Thursday night. Oh, got a good one for you Thursday. If you didn't watch last week, before I get into this Thursday, if you didn't watch last week, it was Producer's Corner with Trammell Starks. Very fine producer. Peebo Bryson, Jennifer Holliday. He also talked some about new technology that is emerging in music, Atmos. Very good interview. Trammell and I have been friends for a long time, but we've never really hung out in a room together for more than a few minutes outside of when we helped a mutual friend move, which we still called the move from hell. But that was the most time I ever got to spend with Trammell. But he and our careers have paralleled quite a bit, and it's really worth watching that interview. It was very good. He's very well spoken, and he's got a lot of knowledge to pass on. This coming Thursday, I'm interviewing film director Andrew Shearer, who heads up Gonzerific Films, which deals mainly with feminist B movies, and I've done some work with, and I think you're going to really enjoy that conversation. We talk about everything from friendship to movies to music and movies, and beyond. So very interesting guy. He's a musician, a film director, a writer. He does all kinds of things. So that's coming up this Thursday at 8 p.m. So make sure you tune in for that. And I hope everybody has a good week. And I'm going to get back to the rain in Georgia here. So thank you once again for listening in. And until Thursday, have a safe one. Bye.